we're going to go through different rappers and decide what's their best and worst albums. Very interesting because we have some stacked catalogs in here. And speaking about stacked catalogs, let's get into Kanye West, one of the most iconic discographies in all of hip-hop. What's his best and worst album to you?
Very interesting, just because I feel like you could put almost any of his albums as his best and everybody's going to fucking respect it and I'll look at you sideways. I think when it comes to Kanye, what I think is his best album is Graduation. And that's just because with this album, he really turned into this multi-dimensional musical genius.
Absolutely.
Going from that orchestral classic sound and that hip-hop soul sound that you heard on the College Dropout and later Reg, moving into more of this electronic pop with these amazing synths. And I also think that it's one of his most underrated concept albums, so I think that's why I would put it as his best.
I have, okay, listen, before you get onto your worst, because I'm going to join you in on the worst one, I think we share the same pick for that one. I have The College Dropout at his best. I think it's one of the strongest debut albums of all time in the genre. I also love what he did with Chipmunk Soul and bringing back this beautiful energy into rap again. Plus, it was very revolutionary for the rap game, just because you never heard anyone make concept records like this before in this type of aesthetic. You know, Kanye kind of going away from the thug persona and kind of being himself and talking about everything that, you know, he lives in his life and being true to himself. And you get all-time classics on here like Through the Wire, All Falls Down. You know, you have Last Call on here. So that's what I think is his best. What do you have as his worst, bro?
His worst, I mean,
Jesus is King?
It's funny just because, like, it's such a challenge to choose his best. But when it comes to his worst, it's a fucking piece of cake to the side. And I think that Jesus is King is his worst just because when it comes to this album, Kanye's always been introspective into his music, but it felt like this album was a big statement. It was him, you know, it was kind of his redemption arc, him finding God, but rather than really giving us the details of that journey, it felt like he was just praising God.
I will say this, though, about the album. I do think it's his worst, but it has one of the most interesting soundscapes than any other album that he's put together. I love all of the beautiful choir pieces within the
It's not one of his best soundscapes.
I like it. I really enjoy it.
It's not a top 5 best Kanye West produced album.
But I say it's underrated. It's a super
there's
underrated
great
soundscape.
moments like they use this gospel beat with the fucking seatbelt sound ringing off and Kenny G's fucking sax. Like, there's great moments within it. I just don't think it's one of his best produced albums by any means. And you also have like songs that Close on Sunday on here, which aren't that great. But I think it's kind of a consensus decision that Jesus King is his worst album. But let's move on now to Eminem. Another iconic discography. And listen, if you don't have one of his first 3 albums as his best, I don't know if you've listened to enough Eminem.
Absolutely. So when we did the discography ranking, you and I wanted to do a 1-2 placement because I do agree the Marshall Mathers LP could be looked at as best album. In my opinion, though, it is the real Slim Shady. And I think what that album...
Slim Shady LP.
It's my bad. I had the real Slim Shady on my fucking thing. The Slim Shady LP is amazing just because I feel like it perfectly encapsulates what that Slim Shady persona was at the time. And I just looking back at that project, I have my all-time favorite Eminem songs on there. I have songs like Role Model off of there. I have Guilty Conscious. You know, you have As the World Turns. Like, there's so many great songs off of that project, and I love it as a concept record. It's super cinematic, and it's also maybe one of his most comedic plays as well. So
for sure, it's definitely one hell of a ride. You know, you're getting bars about like, you know, him stapling his classmates' balls to a stack of paper. You know what I mean? Those kinds of funny, outrageous lines.
And that's what I love Eminem
but
for.
I love Eminem for always showing me different sides of himself, and that's why the Marshall Mathers LP is a superior album, just because you're getting that Slim Shady persona, but you're also getting Eminem, and you're getting Marshall Mathers. You're getting some of his best songwriting ever on songs like Who Knew or on songs like Stan. You're
Even
getting
Criminal,
some of
Marshall
his best
Mathers,
lyrical performances. I think the song structure, the song concepts, something like Drug Ballad, super slept on. And yeah, I just think that when it comes to Eminem, the entertainer and writer, the Marshall Mathers LP is where you'll find his most complete body of work.
I do agree with that. I just think, like, to my listening, especially for what I enjoy Eminem for, I go with the Slim Shady LP. But I think his worst is easily Revival.
So you're low-key agreeing with me and saying that Marshall Mathers LP is better.
But, I mean, because I can make the argument for both. Like, that's why I said it at the before we started, like, in our discography ranking. We had that 1 and 2 because you can make the argument. But I think objectively in his catalog, Revival is his worst album. And this was such a disappointing album for me just because, like, you're waiting... What was it, 4 years? Because he dropped the Marshall Mathers LP 2 in 2013, and then this comes out in 2017, and it's really lackluster. And, you know, I get it. Like, I guess, like, you know, it was kind of like this album that felt personal to Eminem, something that he wanted to put out. Had kind of a concept behind it, but
no, it didn't.
It didn't. No, and
listen,
and you're gonna find like all-time like bad Eminem songs. Off
I
this
was
project.
so angry getting this because, like you said, we waited 4 years, and for what, bro? For collabs with like Ed Sheeran and Pink. I mean, and like the whole like concept of the album was like Eminem saving America from the depths of hell. Like, it was just totally out there. And also, like, the first song on the album is Eminem rapping about him listening to his own shit in the car and thinking, oh, this is garbage. And then you have the album cover, him doing like the face palm, and I'm like, this is all clicking right now. Like, this is exactly how I feel about this album by the time I got to the end of it. And even the whole like rock-inspired production, I'm sorry, Rick Rubin is a legend, bro, but he had to get him out of the room for that one, bro. Like,
he had
done it on the Marshall Mathers LP too. He brought it back again. You know, it was just awful.
So
bro.
wait, are you going Revival or the Marshall Mathers LP too?
I'm going Revival.
Oh, okay. Thank
Absolutely.
God. I thought you were going to Marshall Mathers LP2.
Marshall Mathers LP2 is so much better.
It is a much better
than
album.
Revival.
Okay, so that's for Eminem. Let's go on to Playboi Carti. Very short catalog, and he's been active for quite some time now, probably for the 7+ years. And what's interesting is that I feel like there's a nice exclusivity factor to his catalog where he takes time with his projects. People are hyped for it, and I like that about an artist. So I don't think his worst album is a bad album. I'm going to start off with his worst. I think it's Whole Lotta Red. Easy. I mean, I love Carti for that Cash Carti era, and that's where I came up listening to him. I mean, a lot of people will probably disagree with that, but I don't give a fuck. I think that Whole Lotta Red is his worst album.
Why do you think it's his worst? Because you said that you prefer the Cash Carti aesthetic, but what makes it to you not as great of an album?
There's so much bloat on that track list, bro. I don't care what anyone tells me. Like, I get it. You know, there's good songs on there. There's people that enjoy that track list and that usually, let's say, for the gym or like listening to that album live in concert. But for myself, like going back to that self-titled and going back to Die Lit, I find they're more focused.
I just feel like I've heard it all before. It's experimental. It's daring. It's bold. It's influential. I get it, bro. It's an influential album, and it's impossible not to hear the influence of it, but that's not going to take away from the 24-song track list or the execution that had this concept of this punk energy and Playboi Carti being a vampire that wasn't really followed through with from start to finish. Not only that, but I also feel like the screamo on here is pretty awful.
Yeah,
I like the freedom he had in terms of how unhinged he sounds, but the delivery wasn't it.
I will say this though, the beat selection on the album was quite nice. Though there was
the beat selection was great.
Yeah, what Art Dealer did on that soundtrack was fantastic. But listen, what I think is his best is Die Lit. You know, I think you're gonna
disagree.
I think you're gonna have self-titled there, and I feel like Die Lit is kind of like an upgraded version of self-titled to a certain extent. I like the track list a lot better. I have songs on there that I do prefer, and over time, I found myself going back to that track list more than self-titled.
I think that Die Lit has a few skips while Playboi Carti does not have any skips, and I feel like Playboi Carti has really become a staple in terms of, I would say, modern psychedelic cloud rap. And I think that just that marriage between Pierre Bourne and Playboi Carti, seeing the foundation of that sound for the first time was revolutionary for this new wave especially. And yeah, I love how slow and steady a lot of Carti's deliveries and flows are throughout this. He really puts you under a spell with all of these songs.
Number 9, Half and Half. Like you have some all-time great Carti songs on there.
Location,
absolutely.
Come on,
No,
bro.
You definitely do. I think I prefer Die Lit because I feel like it's a better album experience as a whole. Like when I go into Die Lit, I find myself gravitating towards more tracks and actually being immersed more into the track list than I would, let's say, with self-titled, where I'm kind of just like, okay, I'm going to take out a lot of these songs, but I just don't find myself going start to finish as much as I do with Die Lit with it.
All right.
That's my choice for Playboi Carti.
On to Kid Cudi,
what do you got, bro?
As his best album, I think that his most ambitious album, his best executed concept album, his fan favorite album, his career-defining album is Man on the Moon. And I think that it's as simple as just his performances being outstanding. If you're looking at the crooning, if you're looking at the humming, the sensational hooks on songs like Soundtrack to My Life or Day and Night or Intergalactic. I mean,
even Alive, yeah.
There's so many great songs, and I think that, you know, this was a staple not only in psychedelic rap, but also in terms of an album really playing into the themes of mental health and advocating for mental health. That was game-changing for rap.
Yeah, and it also spoke to so many people just because, like, Man on the Moon puts you into a type of zone where you kind of feel like you're floating in space and it feels euphoric, but you still are alone. And I feel like a lot of people have an uncomfortable, have an uncomfortable emotion and feeling, you know, by being alone and being, you know, secluded from society. But Kid Cudi almost makes it seem cool to be like that and be that outcast throughout that album. And
the album feels like a warm hug.
exactly.
You know what
That's
I mean?
what I mean. Like Kid Cudi is saying everything's gonna be all right throughout this track list, and as you said, you have all-time great songs in there for me. Alive, Intergalactic, Soundtrack to My Life, Day and Night, Pursuit of Happiness.
The common narration as well.
You could really go on and say that this is one of the best albums from the 2000s decade. But what do I have as his worst? Man, I listen, and I don't like saying this because he has a nice catalog, and when I was going through it, like I think that there's a lot of strength in it. But Speeding Bullet to Heaven is
my goodness.
I have that as his worst. What do you have?
Oh man, it's absolutely Speeding Bullet to Heaven, and this was his take on alternative rock
and
grunge inspired songs. And the only thing that fucking ties this album together are the random ass Beavis and Butthead interludes, bro, that pop out of nowhere that aren't funny. And I think that
the track list is
you
way
are
too
getting
long as
Cudi
well,
at one of his darkest and lowest points, but I just think that the lyrics aren't great whatsoever. His vocals are super raw, but they don't sound mixed well. The simplistic guitar riffs don't do the songs any justice either, even though I respect him taking on a lot of the production on his own. It's just an awful album, bro.
Yeah, not only
it's
that,
awful.
but like even there's not really a feature list going in through it as well, and it's an
hour.
You
don't need a feature
but
list,
I mean,
bro.
it's an hour plus long, bro. At 18
I don't
tracks,
care.
like
People can pull it off.
No,
bro.
I mean, but he didn't pull it off here.
He
like
didn't. But
that's
I
what
wouldn't knock the fact that he's alone on the album as a point.
No, but I find that added to my pacing issues with the album because it clocks in at 63 minutes.
So look at something like DS2. You only have the Drake feature, and that shit carries you for the hour.
Yeah, I know, but it didn't work in this context. That's what I'm saying.
I just don't think that's a flaw. J. Cole has done that on all his albums.
No, but I'm saying in the context of this album,
okay.
like bro, when you go through track 1 to 18, at least if you were to have some good features and stuff to keep you engaged into this track list, you'd be able to. But yeah, I don't find the grunge or the alternative rock aesthetic was pulled off nice throughout the track list, and I definitely think it's his worst. But let's keep going on with this. Who do we have next on
we
this
have
list,
Mac
bro?
Miller next.
Yeah,
one of my favorite catalogs of all time, one of your favorites as well. And this is one of the tough ones because I was really circling back between Faces, between Circles, between Swimming, watching movies with the sound off. I mean,
I got down to Swimming though. What did you get?
Of course it's Swimming, bro. At the
right,
end of the day, I think that I don't want to speak too much on this because at one point we are going to do more content on this in a full like discography ranking where I really want to kind of sink our teeth into it. But I think that it's his most complete album from start to finish. It feels like one complete thought. I think that Mac Miller kind of roaming freely throughout funk, throughout R&B, throughout hip hop. It was an amazing genre blurring album, and just the concept of him trying to keep his head above the water and survive and move past all the trials and tribulations. It was just phenomenally executed, and yeah, I loved it, bro.
And I think what this album does for Mac Miller's career is it kind of like, it was at a time where Mac Miller was at one of his like deepest moments and like one of his most, let's say negative moments. And I feel like that was perfectly executed throughout the track list, especially within the writing. But there are glimpses of hope within the actual track list when you're going through it. Example, songs like 2009, like has more of an uplifting and euphoric mood. While then you could also get darker tones within the album, like let's say with songs like Jet Fuel. So I also like the duality of the album, how there are those little brinks of light within it. And I do think that it's his most, I do believe it's his most complete track.
Maybe his best produced. I mean, think about like the guitar chords on Jet Fuel, the amazing bass line from Thundercat on What's the Use, like
the beats,
John Bryan coming into play,
the second beat on Self Care, like you have a lot of stand, even the J. Cole beat on Hurt Feelings. There's a lot of great standouts on here. But
fire.
What do I think is his worst? I went through a lot of his mixtapes and I went back to his studio albums, and I do think Delusional Thomas is his worst, but I still do enjoy the experience. We did it with our Patreon members, and it was super fun because it's a horrorcore album, and the content matter is super dark. You have this sort of like this pitched up vocal effect on Mac Miller to make him seem like he's Delusional Thomas, and I just think for a studio album, and like not a studio album but like a mixtape experience, it was nice, but you can't access this every day. So I think that's his worst.
Yeah,
for me.
I mean, for this I didn't include anything that's not on streaming services, or else maybe I would have considered Delusional Thomas or like Easy Mac, which was like he was a kid when he dropped that
because
one.
Delusional Thomas was a pick for me just because like his career had already taken off with everything, so I was like, okay, this could be a good selection for me. I still like the mixtape.
I have Blue Slide Park though. I have his debut album, which is a fan favorite, and again, I had to choose from everything that was on streaming, and I think that this is really the project that did catapult him into stardom, and it kind of marks like the end of the frat rap era where he's rapping about partying and having a good time.
Into Macadelic,
but there's still a lot of charisma and like just youthful energy from Mac that I really love within this track list. But some of the writing is a bit more simplistic. The beats are slightly more bland, but I still have songs on here like the title track or like PA Nights and so many others that I absolutely love. So yeah, there's not too many criticisms that I have for this album.
Even me and Delusional Thomas, I still love the experience. But okay, that's Mac Miller. Let's go on to Future. We were talking about this earlier. Future, low-key doesn't have like a bad album. You know, he doesn't have a weak project. And when it comes to his best, I think we could both agree it's DS2. This for me is the holy grail of trap music. And you know, what do you want to talk about, bro? Thought it was a drought. Fuck up some commas. Stick talk. You know, where you at? You know, there's so many great all-time Future songs on this track list. And I mean, it was just a moment, bro. No one was doing trap music like this, and the slurred out deliveries, bro. Him, you know, with the melodic crooning on top of Southside and Metro Boomin's production. Everything was
phenomenal.
Perfect.
I think that, you know, there's nothing else to be said about it. I mean, it's just constant energy after song, and I also think that this album is a breath of fresh air when you look at the context of trap albums that we have today. A 1 hour listen with just one feature that consistently keeps you locked in. Plus, you're adding in Metro Boomin and Southside with this comatose type of production. Phenomenal. But let's get on to his worst, which is kind of the real debate when it comes to Future's catalog.
And this was hard. I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. I believe. What did you pick? You had Pluto, right?
I had Pluto on this, and there's also all kinds of mixtapes that you could choose from that aren't on streaming. But once again, I just went from what's on streaming services, and I think that Pluto is his worst just because he kind of went for I would say more of a mainstream appeal. He started going with some more R&B cuts, some more crooning, where he didn't fully adopt, I would say, that fine line of rapping and auto crooning as well.
But I will say this about Pluto and why I didn't take it as because I feel like it's also kind of like a foundational block to like his music and like where he was able to catapult.
There's still all-time low songs like Never End or Permanent Scar.
I know, but like I Never Liked You as his worst album. And people are going to give me hate for that because they love the track list, but I do think it's his weakest put together project. I'm not going to lie to you. And yes, I have songs on there that I do enjoy, like Puffin' on Zooties and Chickens and Gold Stacks, but to be honest with you, it does not compare with the rest of his track list and even his modern run, okay?
There's been a dip in the catalog.
There has been a dip in the catalog. And even if you want to compare this to like High Off Life, let's say, or even, you know, The Wizard, like, you know, let's say recent projects, still the track list don't stack up to that. And it kind of feels a bit lazy from Future in certain instances throughout the track list. And even the melodic ballads on the album, they're okay. So it's not my favorite project, but still, you know, I don't think it's bad by any means.
Yeah, let's move on now to Joey Badass, an artist that I think really doesn't have a bad album by any means, bro.
No, he doesn't.
But to start off with his best, I think that you're really going to get his most lyrical displays and his best lyrical displays on 1999 when you're looking at the double entendres, the rhyme schemes, that hunger from Joey at just 17 years old. He was a fucking phenomenon during that time. It felt like he was a 30-year-old veteran MC just spitting with the soul of a young kid.
And not only that,
it was needed during that time because you weren't getting that many, you know, youthful lyricists coming onto the scene like that.
It was daring for him too, because think about it like this: like rap was going into a completely different direction. So for Joey to take his debut mixtape and, you know, have that become, let's say, this old play on 90s rap and putting it into more of a modern version for the 2010 decade was a genius move. It catapulted him into success, and it's the foundation of his whole fucking catalog, bro. Like, you'll never get a better mixtape, in my opinion, than 1999.
Resurrected Boom Bap from the tombs.
Absolutely.
But why is it better than Before the Money or All American Badass?
I just think, like, when you're going back to the writing on, you know, 1999, it's superior. I mean, you know, even songs like, for me, like, you know, Third Eye shit or Penny Royale, like, I have so many low-key songs that I take out of this where you go into the writing and you're looking at it and you're wondering how he was able to craft these verses at such a young age. But yes, I love Before the Cash. I love All American Badass. I love 2000. I mean, I really do love Joey's discography, and he's one of my most played artists of all time. But what do I have as his worst? Summer Nights, and it's not a bad project whatsoever. I believe it's only 7 songs, if I'm not mistaken.
It's actually longer if you go on that Piff.
If you go on that Piff, the streaming version is 7 songs itself. And I just think that when you have to take Summer Nights and kind of compare it to the rest of his discography, Joey Badass's 2000 has a better production and soundscape. You want better writing than Summer Nights, you could go to Before the Cash. You want more of an emotional and, let's say, political messaged album like All American Badass. It's better than Summer Nights, so I had it as his worst.
I was struggling between Summer Nights and 2000. I think those are both in contention. Both great projects. For me, I had maybe a few criticisms with Joey's cadences on Summer Nights. I felt like that angry tone that you saw perfected on something like Christ Conscious, he was still developing on some songs off of Summer Nights.
That's true.
Like 95 Till Infinity, for example. But overall, still a solid mixtape, but it is his worst project. Let's move on now to Big Sean. Interesting catalog. Never was one of my favorites, but there was always projects that I enjoyed. And I was stuck here between his Detroit mixtape and Dark Sky Paradise, which I think is actually a really solid album. But I ended up going with Detroit. I think that it's one of those albums that has cinematic value for a mixtape. I love all the skits that are implemented into it. I think that you're getting some of Big Sean's best collaborations with artists like J. Cole, with artists like Kendrick and Royce da 5'9". I love that he brought in Young Chop, who was popping off during that time, to give you the Chicago drill type beats. And yeah, I just think that it's his best rounded project overall.
Yeah, and I think my cousin Chris, because he's a big Sean fan, would probably agree with you on that one. But I had two other projects in contention. It was I Decided and Dark Sky Paradise.
Really? I Decided as his best? Wow.
Yeah, I really do enjoy that project. I think it's super underrated. It's a personal album as well. Feature list was super solid. Stand out for me back. I believe it came out in 2017. But yeah, Dark Sky Paradise is his best for me. I think it's his magnum opus, at least within his,
Does he have a magnum opus?
At least let me finish my fucking thought. His magnum opus in regards to his discography, and I do definitely think it's his sharpest. I mean, you have all-time great songs like from Big Sean's catalog on here, and I do enjoy it the most out of the rest of his projects. But his worst, Finally Famous, bro. Like,
absolutely, man.
Bro, this was really like I had to re-go through this track list yesterday night, and bro, like it was 1 a.m. in my apartment upstairs, and dude, like I did not want to be playing this album in 2022.
Yeah,
it's aged horribly. It's
really awful, bro.
It's really
like,
not a good project.
I don't know how the fuck you even name your debut album Finally Famous. It's just so pretentious and it's corny.
Yeah, but that was a part of the persona, though, early on in his career.
But just as much as the lyrics are corny, I think that him flexing throughout the entire project doesn't really make you envy him. It just makes you wonder why. Yeah, bro. There's awful songs. I hate like the club dance type of production as well.
Mix it with like frat rap a bit too. It's a really odd fusion.
I could write a fucking essay, bro. A full essay on the awful punchlines and bars, bro. Like I ride around getting cranium just because my dick is as hard as titanium. Bro.
Yeah, okay. Finally Famous is Big Sean's worst. Let's go into Polo G. Another artist that took a lot of time with his catalog and that's developing it over the years. And you know what? I want to start off with his worst. It's going to be Hall of Fame. He actually admitted that he didn't enjoy it as much.
Really? I didn't see that.
In an interview. Yes, he was in an interview and he said that he felt like he really didn't do anything special on that album in comparison to his next
the album that cemented his legacy, and it just didn't do that for me in the slightest. And besides, let's say, Bloody Canvas or Painting Pictures, the intro and outro, everything in the middle, all of like the meat of the album is lackluster. But his best album to me, because I definitely agree with Hall of Fame, I think it's the GOAT. You're getting the perfect blend of
I have the GOAT as well.
Conscious music and trap music with songs like Martin and Gina, or with songs like Wishing for a Hero, which is one of his best
21
ever.
as well, yeah.
I just think that, you're finding his best songs on there, and that one really showed a lot of promise. Despite the production not being great with a lot of the piano riffs that.
And he spoke about that
consistent.
actually within his interview, and he said that like he felt like that's the sound that he wants to craft, but also perfect and elevate is within those piano productions. But yeah, I do think Hall of Fame is his worst. His best is the GOAT. But let's keep going on with this. Freddie Gibbs, another stacked catalog, so much to choose from. What do I have as his best? I have Bandana, bro. What do you got as his best?
Bandana as his best.
I got Bandana as his best.
It's gotta be Pinata, bro.
And that, that's gonna be an unpopular decision, but I love Bandana, bro. Everything from the Japanese samples that are being used within the soundscape. I have all-time favorite Freddie songs on this album as well. I think it is the best album of 2019, and I think it's so far it's better than Pinata. I know people are gonna look at me crooked for that, but I have it as his best.
Bandana second place, and then probably Alfredo third place, but Pinata is absolutely his best, because I feel like when you're looking at Freddie's catalog, there's everything that came before Pinata and everything that came after it. Like it's the staple album in Freddie's career, just because when he started rapping on these outlandish, obscure samples from Madlib, like Madlib is taking fucking songs that are featured on like Michael Jordan TV movies, on songs like Shitsville, where you have that low speedy piano riff that's going crazy. So I love the sampling. I love Freddie's kind of blaxploitation film type of vibe for the album, and just his ability to go off on these crazy beats that probably no other rapper could have matched. And it feels like an only built for Cuban links in modern time.
Exactly.
Like it's the closest I've gotten to a classic gangster rap album besides maybe something like Blank Face or
I put Bandana
others.
in that conversation,
and
but I think you could go Pinata, Bandana, or Alfredo for this answer. But you have it as his worst, bro. It was hard.
Cold Day in Hell.
You had Cold Day in Hell?
Cold Day in Hell, 2012 mixtape.
I had Shadow of a Doubt. I had that as his worst.
As his worst? No.
I think it's his worst studio album.
There's some great songs on that album.
There are some great songs.
Wow.
You know, get the Black Thought feature on there. Like, there's definitely some great songs. I find like when I go back, bro, it hasn't aged well for me. And like when I have to look at his studio albums, it's the one I revisit the least. And there's a major dip off in the second half of that track list, at least in my opinion. So
I think that's a really bad take. But Cold Day in Hell, it was the mixtape that he dropped right after signing to Jeezy, and mixing on his vocals are really poor. The production seems more suited towards a Jeezy or a T.I. You have distorted drums, you have these blown out horns. I just think it didn't suit Freddie Gibbs's vocal performances, I would say. So that's what I have as his worst. Let's move on now to 21 Savage. And I was really struggling with this. Obviously, I wanted to put Without Warning, but it doesn't really qualify. It's a collab album. So
Savage
I'm
mode,
like,
though.
Savage Mode, I'm greater than I was. But I went Savage mode.
Yeah, you
at the
have
end
to
of the
go
day.
Savage mode, bro. This was so iconic, and it's arguably like their best collab, project together. I think it's better than Savage Mode 2.
For sure.
That's for sure. So I had that in conversation as well, but for me, the worst album is definitely Izza, bro. That's for sure. I think that's his worst studio album. You can't even compare it, bro, to his Savage Mode series. I Am Greater Than I Was. You saw a bigger artist evolution, and you saw him actually take risks on that album, and Izza kind of
There's still risks on Issa. If you look at songs like Numb or Nothing New, like him getting more conscious with his shit, talking about the cycle of gang violence, like that was refreshing. But you're getting songs like FaceTime, where he just sounds like an AI generated version of himself.
But that's right. Like I feel like it was kind of, he saw the hype and popularity he was gonna have after that Savage Mode run, and then he was like, okay, let me try and make a pop attempt of an album.
Yeah.
And like, in my opinion, it really doesn't sound good.
I agree.
In 2022. So yeah, I got Savage Mode as his best, is as his
Me
worst.
too.
Exact same thing. Let's keep going on with this. Let's go on to Nav. Interesting catalog, because there's actually quality in here, and people talk about Perfect Timing. People talk about Emergency
We
Tsunami.
know it's Nav self-titled.
Nav self-titled is his best. I don't think there's any debating that. I mean, that cold Toronto sound that comes out of that mixtape is fucking iconic to me, especially for us. We're from Canada, so we understand how important that project was to Toronto and even Montreal.
Yeah.
But let's go on to his worst.
I'm going to talk about his best, though. I just want to say...
Oh, yeah, go for it. My bad.
I feel like it's a 30-minute drug trip with Nav where his conscious is kind of speaking to himself as he kind of floats away into oblivion. And I think that 90% of his collection of best ever songs, you'll find on his self-titled with Myself, My Mind, Good For It, Lonely. Everything on there fucking hits some way with The Weeknd. But his worst, like you were saying... Is it Bad Habits? Because that's what I have.
I had Bad Habits, but I had Demons Protected by Angels, bro. Like,
No.
I think it's his worst project.
I think Bad Habits is worse.
Like, you could argue both of those just because there's literally nothing salvageable out of both of these track lists. But, bro, Demons Protected by Angels was really beans. Like, I'm not going to lie to you. Like, going through this project, there's nothing salvageable out of the track list. The production was lackluster. I didn't like the vocal effects he was using throughout the track list. It's a long track list
Uzi
as
collabs
well.
were not bad. I enjoyed those.
I'm not going back and revisiting those. So yes, I have Demons Protected by Angels. I do think it's his worst effort
Bad
yet.
Habits is worse. You have every fucking A-list feature in the rap game on that album, and they all managed to outperform him. I also think that the hooks are really awful, and I also believe that, like, when you're looking at his flows and his rhythm, super choppy, kind of takes a break in between his flow to like catch a breath at times, and you're like, this is rhythmless.
No, yeah, there's nothing
like
going
for
on
a
with
lot
that
of the songs on here, especially if you're looking at To My Grave or Tap. Really awful stuff. But let's move on now to Brockhampton, a much better discography to speak about. And I love so many of their projects. The entire Saturation series has become iconic. One of the best trilogies out of any other collective in history to me. I also love Roadrunner, but ended up going with Saturation, the beginning of it all.
Oh, for sure.
I just love the hyperactive energy. I love what Amir had brought to the collective during that time. He was kind of like this, I would say, fierce energy that brought a lot of life to the tracks. Apart from that, I love how daring and experimental the production was on that one.
Oh, absolutely. And like this was before they started getting into more pop rap and they were still trying to figure out their sound. And I love that Saturation run because it all happened within the realms of 2017 and you saw how hungry they all were to be able to break out on the scene. And I feel like that hunger is best displayed on something like the first Saturation. And even going back to that track list, like I feel like the chemistry is impeccable there, bro, because like that was really, I feel like, the peak of Brockhampton. And then you could also argue that Roadrunner does have that same chemistry. So that's kind of what I was looking for in their catalog, was that chemistry within the group. So I do have Saturation as their best. What do you have as their worst, though, bro? Very nice debate, just because like they low-key don't have a weak album. But what did you have? What did you put?
Yeah, this was tough for me, I'm not gonna lie to you, but I ended up going with Ginger.
Oh, that's interesting.
I chose Ginger, which is more of their R&B pop-leaning album. You had some of their biggest hits on there, like Sugar, that was featured on that track list. And to be honest with you, I do like the religious themes. I do like songs like Dearly Departed, where they're kind of comforting Joba and Matt Champion, who are talking about the losses they experienced, which was kind of a good prelude, I would say, into Roadrunner, because that ended up being the entire focus of that track list. But yeah, I just don't think that the pacing is as great all throughout, and I was hoping for some more jaw-dropping rapping performances.
Yeah, listen, this is the only group that I had like a slash on. I wanted to see what you were going to go with. I was going to go Iridescence, or I was going to go with Ginger. And I don't know. I'm siding both because I do feel like that's the weak point within their discography. Like the Saturations is obviously the peak, and then after that, Roadrunner was one of the best experiences of 2022. So I feel like you could say this, but you're right. I do think it is Ginger. Just them going more into a pop direction with their music and that whole R&B slower tempo vibe. I don't find, really did much for me, at least far as an album experience goes. But like you said, like I do like those personal cuts throughout the album.
Absolutely. And writing wise, I think it is one of their more mature albums. But let's move on now to Don Toliver. And this is a very interesting one just because he doesn't have that big of a catalog. So you have Donnie Womack, you have Heaven or Hell, and then you have Life of a Don. This was very easy for me to choose.
Oh, absolutely.
Very
easy.
Easy.
Best Heaven or Hell?
Absolutely.
And then worst, I picked Donnie Womack.
Donnie Womack.
Yeah,
easily.
absolutely.
Like just him choosing the name Donnie Womack in reference to Bobby Womack, that was bold within itself. But yeah, I think that it's his worst project just because you didn't have Mike Dean fucking mixing and mastering.
Exactly. That was the thing. I was thinking about it. I'm like, how could you put Donnie Womack over Life of a Don if like you had all of that production and mixing and mastering from Mike Dean, and like the album soundscape on Life of a Don is still refreshing in 2022, a year later.
It's
great. You have great tracks on there. I find the first half of the album is obviously better than the second half, but still, Donnie Womack was still him trying to figure out his sound, and like the auto-tune crooning is not nearly as good on something like Heaven or Hell or let's say Life of a Don. You're getting really weak performances throughout the track list as well. And I do think that he needed the help of Mike Dean and Travis Scott to elevate his craft.
Still great songs like Back End or Video Girl.
Yes, there is.
But I just think that like his delivery was a bit too shouty. I like that he kind of mellowed it out on future projects.
And like, sometimes the auto-tune rings a bit too hard, let's say, within your headphones on certain performances. And I'd have to go back and reference the track list to give you certain instances. But okay, best Heaven or Hell, worst Donnie Womack. Let me go on to DaBaby, okay? Because bro, I'm not gonna lie to you, I enjoyed DaBaby's music before he ended up getting into, a bunch of different things, and like the catalog started taking a dip. What do I have as his best? 2019's Kirk. I think that's his best album that he has. How about you? What do you got?
I also have Kirk as his best album, and it was cool to see that he dropped that right after all the hype from Baby on Baby, capitalized on that, took a risk by dropping the same year, and delivered again. You're getting songs like Bop on there. You're getting the intro song, which I absolutely love, one of his most personal cuts, talking about the mixed emotions
like Toes on there,
of him going number one while also finding out his father passed away. I also love the production on this one comparison to other ones, and I like the fact that there was hunger and a different approach from song to song. Like intro doesn't sound like Off the Rip doesn't sound like Bop. Like there is a bit more diversity in terms of his approach on these songs.
So his best is definitely Kirk, his worst is Baby on Baby 2, bro.
Absolutely.
Nah, I chose another 2022 album just like I did for Nav because this is a really dreadful listen, bro. Like there's nothing salvageable out of this track list. Really corny bars. The writing gets stale throughout the whole track list because he really doesn't change it up anywhere. There was this sort of like alter ego that was trying to be placed within the track list where like his voice gets pitched down, and that sounded awful throughout all of it. What are you really getting out of this track list, bro? Nothing.
Not much.
Even at that, like I find Jetson's production got stale on this project for me. Like there's nothing going on with those 808s anymore.
Yeah,
so that's at least for me.
Performances were terribly weak. It felt like all these 2-minute songs were 5 minutes long, and he was just chasing controversy, I feel like, and it's definitely a new all-time low. I think it's like the breaking point of where we're starting to see this DaBaby wave crash and hit the shore. You know what I mean? That's kind of what I took out of it. It's just a major indication of the quality no longer being there. if it ever was. I know it's harsh, but I never really gravitated towards his projects. But last one, we're gonna end off on a good note. We have Vince Staples, bro.
Do you have any of his recent projects as his best? Do you have
recent projects?
Do you have Ramona Park, or do you have Vince Staples self-titled as his best?
No.
I don't have it either. Okay, so what do you have as his best? What do you
as his best, I have Summertime 06.
I have Summertime 06.
But this was super tough to decide on just because I love the radio show concept and those fun West Coast rap beats on FM.
Does FM come in second?
No.
Okay,
because I also love the visceral writing on Vince Staples. Like, that shit was phenomenal. I love the EDM infused Big Fish Theory. That's one of his best concept albums. So it was Big Fish Theory or Summertime 06. I went Summertime 06 because I feel like it's Vince's Good Kid, Mad City, in the sense of him giving you this portrait of his hometown. 20-song double disc album that kind of flies by, and he's giving you these kind of complex themes in a very simplistic way.
Yeah.
It's straight to the point. It's logical. It flows super well as a track list. You're getting songs like North on here. You're getting
Senorita
Jump
on here,
Off
bro.
the Roof.
Get
oh my
paid,
goodness,
bro. Yeah, there's some serious slappers
Easy.
on this track list. It's a really strong track list. I got to agree with you. And as you said, I find like having a double album is risky because the pacing could get really long. And like this was great because it only clocks in on 19 tracks and it's 59 minutes. By a minute he was able to keep it under an hour.
Yep.
And I think that's what's great about Vince's discography is that there's never any filler, and I think that applies to this track.
Shout out to No Idea and DJ Dahi as
Not
well.
Only the soundscape is fucking
I know,
immaculate,
bro.
bro.
It's bleak, it's dark, it's creepy.
But I think that's what happens when you have No ID directing an album. Like it becomes so focused that like you just immerse yourself into this different experience that you're not getting from any other album. So
Absolutely.
Summertime 06 as his best. His worst, I have Prima Donna. What do you got?
Honestly, I didn't choose Prima Donna, even though I do appreciate that project. If I were to have included EPs, maybe I would have gone with Prima Donna or with Hell Can Wait. But I ended up going with Ramona Park, Broke My Heart, even though, bro, we gave that an amazing rating. Like, that just goes to show that upper echelon of a catalog that fucking Vince Staples has. And I think I just chose it because maybe I haven't had enough time to live with it just yet. It feels
That's
like
fair.
more of a low-key release where, you know, you're getting Vince kind of in this more mellow tone, and it kind of focuses more on atmosphere. But maybe it's going to change over time. But
Yeah,
that's
and it
what
was
I
also a
have.
bit of a softer album from Vince himself. Like, it was a different direction, and I do agree you could have that in contention. But yeah, Prima Donna is not a bad project. It's not a bad EP. I had chosen this just because, like, if you look at the substance on his other albums and the concepts that are being displayed, Prima Donna is definitely inferior to those projects as well. Only 7 songs, and there's nothing really memorable from this track list for me, at least, as far as songs go. I think the only ones that I really have that I really do enjoy are like War Ready and Prima Donna with A$AP Rocky, and even that collaboration I feel like could have been a bit better. And again, it's another Vince project that only clocks in at how long? I think it's only like 22 minutes.
Yeah, all of his albums are super short.
And that's what I love about this project too. I mean, I like this project. I don't like dislike it by any means. It just, when you compare it to the rest of his catalog, I mean, there's definitely no denying that this is maybe his worst. So guys, that's going to be at the end for today. We went through a lot of different artists, a lot of different projects. Let us know where we got it right and let us know where we fucked up. And guys, thank you so much for the support on the channel. Lou, any last words before we end it off tonight?
Not much to say, guys. Thank you so much for all the support. We appreciate it. And subscribe if you have not already for more content just like this. Thank you so much, and we'll catch you in the next one.